Thanks for joining us tonight on another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I am your host once again for another fabulous little half hour where we're going to talk all things motorsports because we finally have Brickyard 400 weekend rolling in to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway right here in Indianapolis, Indiana. But on that note, we also had a very, very packed weekend of racing across the world of Formula One, IndyCar, as well as NASCAR. Of course, IndyCar's weekend could have gone quite a bit better, and we'll definitely talk about that later on here in the show. But Formula One had a fairly decent race in Belgium, though I think there's a lot of people still that are a little bit frustrated with how the current regulations are, but we'll talk about a little bit more of that coming up here later on in the show. So, on that note, let's go ahead and start with the news of the week. We'll begin, as always, in Formula One, and that's where McLaren says that the team will at last test its upside-down rear wing at this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. So a lot of that comes from McLaren obviously not being up to snuff when it comes to Mercedes and Ferrari, hoping that they introduce their new wing that is very similar to those two teams. Hopefully that will bring them some success and hopefully close the gap. At least that's what the team's hope is right now. But when we're talking about a big gap to the leaders, we have to also talk about Aston Martin. And Aston Martin is actually expected to roll out its brand new B-Spec car at this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix as well. So McLaren and Aston Martin will be bringing upgrades to the track this week. Now the new car has also reportedly sparked some more optimism. Finally, at long last, Aston Martin team has some optimism going into a race weekend because this car has been not great. It has struggled immensely. Fernando Alonso, I believe, only has scored 1 point in it, which is not good. Also, that comes to so if they get this B car out, they've also got Honda rolling out an updated power unit after the summer break. So obviously this upcoming weekend is the last race before the summer break. And once that happens, Honda will be able to unveil a new power units upgrade for Aston Martin. So hopefully with the combination of that car plus the new Honda engine upgrade, perhaps they could finally be a little bit more of a competitive team this year. Speaking of one of the drivers of Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso told media this weekend at Spa that his future in F1 actually depends more on the rules rather than Aston Martin's performance. So Fernando Alonso essentially saying here, hey, if these rules continue the way they are, I'll probably retire sooner than later. But if they can actually fix these rules for next year and get a little bit better balance to these cars, he'll definitely stay, and none of it depends on how Aston Martin is currently doing, which we know they're not doing very well. Finally, in the world of Formula One, Gwen Legrue, the head of Mercedes Junior program, is expected to join Red Bull Racing in a similar role, according to Motorsport.com. Legrue is credited with having helped develop Mercedes drivers George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, who are, of course, both with the team now. So that should be a very good hire there for Red Bull, hopefully, as he will bring a lot of experience to the team. Now let's go ahead here and transition into the world of IndyCar. No shortage of news this week. First and foremost, the biggest news that broke over the course of the week was that Dreyer Reinbold Racing is set to return to full-time IndyCar racing beginning in 2027 after they have purchased one of Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing's 3 charters. Racer reports that the rumored purchase price was around $13 million, but no formal numbers regarding the actual sale have been released. No driver has been announced, nor has the team stated whether or not they will be a Chevrolet or Honda team next year. Now, the only reason we include that specifically is because they're a Chevrolet team buying a Honda charter. Now, whether or not, now you have to ask your question, is are the engines equally distributed, and will it be easier for them to maybe become a Honda team rather than remaining a Chevrolet team? We don't know yet, though, and we also don't know the driver, though it is heavily rumored and heavily speculated right now that Connor Daly could join that team for a full-time effort next season. Now, something else to keep in mind, Dreyer Reinbold does anticipate running a second car at the Indianapolis 500 beginning next year, in addition to its full-time chartered entry. So that was a long-time goal of Dennis Reinbold. Remember, it had been since 2012 since Brian Reinbold Racing last competed full-time in the IndyCar Series. They tried to at the beginning of 2013, and ultimately were unable to continue the season after the Indy 500 that year, I believe, and have been an Indy 500 only team ever since. So good news for them. Also something, this is reported by Racer. Racer reports that IndyCar is expected to test the new IR28 chassis sometime between now and the upcoming race in Portland on August 9th. No specific date has been shared, nor has a location for this test, but it is currently expected to either take place at Sebring Raceway or the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. And of course, those would be during the last days of July or the first couple of days of August. Again, all of that is still tentative. This is just according to what Racer is reporting now. Speaking of Racer, Marshall Pruett is reporting that the season finale will once again take place at Laguna Seca in 2027. So all that hope that we would potentially see Nashville return to the season finale is gone. It's staying at Laguna Seca for another year. That's at least according to Marshall Pruett. And he also reports that Richmond is not expected to be on the schedule. In fact, it probably won't be. There's no reason to expect it at this point. And overall, Pruett reports that the schedule is expected to stay pretty much the same, with the exception of the Washington, D.C. race, which is, of course, right now planned as a one-off event, though executives at Penske Entertainment, as well as the president's office, I should say, are basically in negotiations for potentially keeping this race going forward. But as of right now, they're waiting to see how this first event turns out first before they commit to something long term. Not saying it's not impossible. They just want to see how this first event goes logistic-wise and see what the fan engagement's like, what the kind of fan attendance is like, what the ratings are like, before they decide to go forth another one. Obviously, it's this year because it's the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, so this is why they're doing it this year, but potential returns for 2027 and beyond are still on the table, according to Marshall Pruett. That is it for the IndyCar news. We're going to go ahead here real quick, and we do have some unfortunate and sad news to talk about in the world of Formula E. Citroen Racing team principal Cyril Blias died Monday at the age of 43, or Blice, died Monday at the age of 43. No cause of death was given, as the team and Formula E have both asked for privacy for the family. But of course, everybody here at the Racing Report, we send our deepest condolences to his family, as well as everyone in the Formula E paddock. We're going to now transition, and real quick, we're going to take our first break of the show. But when we come back, we're going to discuss everything that went down in the world of Supercars over the past week, as well as everything that's happening in the world of NASCAR, because again, no shortage of things going on in that world. So, more Racing Report coming up after this. Don't go anywhere. And we're back on the Racing Report. Thanks again so much for keep sticking with us through that break. Really appreciate it, of course. Let's go ahead real quick and jump into the Supercars news of the week. A lot to discuss. Well, not really a lot, but two fairly interesting points to talk about today. And first and foremost, that is that David Reynolds, who is nearing the end of his one-year contract extension with Team 18, says he is still unsure what his future holds in Supercars. GM and Team 18 are still rumored to be courting Matt Payne for 2028. Of course, so we told you that Grove Racing has locked up Payne for the 2027 season, but it looks like David Reynolds is not exactly sure where he's going to end up, if he's going to return to Team 18 next year, if he's going to have to find another job, or what his long-term future is with the team right now. Of course, as we learn it, we'll let you know what David Reynolds' future is right here on the Racing Report. So that's why you shouldn't miss an episode, because we've got all the news and notes right here on this show. Final piece of Supercars news to discuss, and if you are an Aaron Love fan, congratulations. It's been a rough couple of years for you, but he is returning to the Supercars paddock nearly 18 months after being fired from Blanchard Racing Team. Love will drive for Eggleston Motorsport in the Super 2 series at their upcoming races at Perth and Sandown. So some update news there. It's not often that we talk about Super 2, but I think when a former Supercars driver gets an opportunity to race in Super 2, I think that's a little bit more newsworthy than normally it would be. But now let's go ahead here and move on into the world of NASCAR, because we have two fairly big bombshells that have dropped over the past 7 days. And first and foremost, it's that NASCAR is changing the practice procedure beginning next month at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Gone are group practices in favor of one long conjoined 50-minute session in which all cars will, of course, participate. Now, NASCAR says this is only going to be the case for races that are not Daytona, Talladega, or Atlanta. So when we go to Daytona and Talladega later on this season, you will not see practice at all, which has been the standard status quo for the last several years. And NASCAR, but at the very least, now when you go to New Hampshire Speedway, you will be able to see a full 50-minute practice session with all cars on track the way it used to be. Of course, it's just one practice session. We don't have 3 sessions like we used to, but either way, this is a very welcome change, a great change, I think, for the fan experience at the track. The more cars on track, the more times to watch cars on track, the better. That is just my opinion. And also, I think it gives a lot more people something to watch on Saturday that's racing related. There are a lot of people who do enjoy watching practice sessions on the weekends and on Friday nights. It's a great way to start the weekend. It's a great way to get yourself ready for the race, and it's also a great way to build storylines throughout the weekend. A lot of the things that happen in practice, they do affect what ends up happening in the race, and I think that makes for more compelling television and makes for a more compelling race for sure. And so overall, my opinion, this is a great move by NASCAR to get away from that kind of group practices and give everybody a chance to run, and everybody run for 50 minutes, which is also very, very welcome. Next big bombshell piece of NASCAR news that we need to get to is it's been announced that Alex Bowman has signed a 1-year contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports, but will retire after the end of the 2027 season. So Alex Bowman going out on his own terms. Now, who will replace him? Not sure yet. Some, according to The Athletic, some are saying that it could be Connor Zilisch. But again, that's still up in the air. You do have Corey Day sitting with Hendrick Motorsports right now in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. So a lot of people also speculating that that is a possibility. But overall, we just don't know. But I think for Alex Bowman fans, this is a good thing. It's nice to have advanced knowledge of when your driver is going to retire. Believe me, speaking as a Casey Kane fan, I wish I could have enjoyed that 2018 season a little bit more than I actually did. So at the very least, this gives Alex Bowman an opportunity to go out on his own terms. And it's also something that he said he had been planning for a while. There was apparently, according to Bowman, he had no plans whatsoever to race in NASCAR past the age of 40, and he's getting there pretty quickly. So Alex Bowman making the right decision for him, obviously, which is to step away from full-time NASCAR competition at the end of 2027. Now let's talk about some silly season news that is going on in this current season for next season. Front Row Motorsports General Manager Jerry Freese says that he expects Noah Gragson to return to the team in 2027, despite reports and rumors that indicate the 28-year-old Las Vegas native could be shown the door in favor of Lane Riggs. Now, here's what Lane Riggs had to say about these rumors. Riggs says no decision has been made on his 2027 plans yet. He would like to go cup racing. He would like to see an opportunity where he could go cup racing, but of course he would. Who wouldn't want to get an opportunity to go cup racing if you've won 4 to 5 races in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series and are leading the point standings there as well? So, again, FRM expects Gragson to be back, but I believe this is likely a fluid situation, and we'll see what ends up happening next year once it all gets sorted out and announced. Also, speaking of, we talked about, we talked about Alex Bowman retiring. Here's a driver who's not retiring. Kelly Earnhardt Miller told SiriusXM NASCAR Radio that Justin Allgaier will, in fact, return to Junior Motorsports in 2027, officially putting to bed any retirement rumors or concerns. Next up here in silly season news, how about this? Joe Gibbs Racing says it has signed Taylor Gray to a one-year contract extension, keeping him in the number 54 Toyota Supra for 2027. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series will once again join the IndyCar Series on the streets of St. Petersburg during the weekend of March 5th through the 7th, 2027. So that's great news. Glad to see the Truck Series remaining in St. Pete as a companion event for IndyCar. That's a great event that has been made even better, I think, and enhanced quite a bit with the addition of the Truck Series. I also am a big proponent that IndyCar and the Truck Series should have more companion races. I think it's one of the more interesting crossovers. You don't necessarily need to have IndyCar in the Cup Series. You can do IndyCar in the Truck Series. They've had a very storied history of running companion races before, and so I'm all for this. Glad to see that officially be announced. In the Craftsman Truck Series, again, more Truck Series news. Colleague Racing says that Elliott Sadler is coming out of retirement to drive the team's number 25 free agent Ram truck at Richmond on August 14th. So Elliott Sadler is coming back. It's been quite some time since he's been behind the wheel of a NASCAR race car, let alone a truck, but not going to complain. Elliott Sadler coming back and going to run at least one race for Colleague Racing. Coming up this weekend at IRP, Gavin Bochelle will drive 6 Truck Series races for Tricon Garage. Of course, beginning this weekend at IRP, he will also race at Richmond, New Hampshire, Kansas, Phoenix, and Martinsville. And also this weekend at IRP, Nick Sanchez will run double duty in Spire Motorsports number 77 truck at IRP. And then on Saturday at IMS in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series Pennzoil 250, he'll be driving Peterson Racing's number 87 Chevrolet. So good news there for Nick Sanchez, getting more opportunities behind the wheel, especially after that opportunity with AM Racing came and went so quickly at the beginning of the year. But that is it for this segment of the Racing Report. We're going to go ahead and take our second and final break of the show. And when we come back, we're going to talk about everything that happened this past weekend in the world of motorsports. And then we're going to get you ready for everything coming up this weekend. And there is no shortage of it. I know I say that every week. I know that feels cliche at this point. But believe me, if you are a fan of racing, there is almost nothing stopping you from seeing something that you're going to like this weekend. So stay tuned for that. We'll cover it all coming up here after the break. So more Racing Report coming up after this. Don't go anywhere. And we're back on the Racing Report. Thanks again so much for sticking with us through that break. Of course, I really appreciate it every single time you do. Thanks for not changing the channel away just because there's a commercial on TV. Let's go ahead and recap your weekend for you. We had NASCAR in North Wilkesboro, the first points race for the NASCAR Cup Series since 1996. How do I explain this? I was an infant the last time NASCAR ran a points race at North Wilkesboro Speedway, and let me tell you, it was a very successful weekend. Of course, the Truck Series kicked things off on Saturday. Well, not technically the Truck Series kicked things off. The Cars Tour actually kicked things off on Friday, but the Truck Series kicked things off for the NASCAR folks, and Chandler Smith dominated, owned that race, and took home the checkered flag. I believe that was his second win of the year outside of Daytona, so congratulations to him. That's a big win there. Also, he's been kind of in the shadow of Lane Riggs, his teammate, so it's good to see him get out of that shadow and get back in victory lane, especially at a short track like North Wilkesboro. That was a very good race for him. And then talking about domination, how about Joey Logano absolutely whipping the field in that Cup race? Like I said, first Cup race at North Wilkesboro since 1996. Joey Logano taking it home. Now, how about this? Shane Van Gisbergen coming home with a top 10 finish as well in that race. That was one of the more surprising things that happened, other than the fact that I believe the top 6 or 7 were remaining on the lead lap by the time that race ended. There were not a lot of cars that were on the lead lap. Logano was just that far ahead of everybody, and it was also very fun to kind of watch how the grooves were working. You saw a lot of different lanes being chosen by drivers, some drivers being able to use the very outside lane of a short track, which is almost unheard of most of the time, but we've seen it with the next-gen car, especially at Richmond a couple of years ago, and we've seen it more and more often now with a lot of these drivers using the outside lanes at some of these short tracks. That was a very interesting race to watch. Some people thought it was a little bit boring. I thought it was a little bit more of a classic NASCAR race, especially a short track. Now, if we could just get a little bit more horsepower out of these things, maybe just a little bit, maybe we'll see some more passing and some more bumping and running. But overall, congratulations to Joey Logano getting his first win of the season at North Wilkesboro. And then we had IndyCar was in Nashville, and oh boy, how do we go from this? So, Sunday, any next race goes off without a hitch, no problems. Good fun race. Matteo Nannini scores the victory, held off Nikita Johnson, also held off Miles Rowe. I really thought Miles Rowe was going to have it again. He is one heck of a driver on ovals. He was making some very, very brave and bold moves and making them work, but I just don't think he had the car under him to really get himself up into victory lane. But he'll take a podium, and I don't think he should scoff at a podium. But after the Indy Next race concluded, we went right into the World Cup on Fox, which, however you want to look at it, was the World Cup. And I think is also important to talk about, and the fact that Fox really, really, really wanted a lot of eyes on this Nashville race. And it came so close. It came so close just when the World Cup went into extra time, and just before Spain scored the game-winning goal, the rains came and the lightning came. And unfortunately, the race was postponed from Sunday until Monday, and that obviously was not ideal. In fact, the race, like I said last week, was scheduled for 300 laps. The series actually shortened it back to 225 like it was the previous year, and I think that was probably the right call. As someone who was in attendance on Monday as well as Sunday, it was just too hot out there. We're talking about 100 degrees, and then to make matters worse, the rain washed all the rubber off, and they had worked so hard to rubber that track in to make it a 2-groove and 2-lane racetrack, and unfortunately the rain just ruined all of that. So when the race finally got started, we realized just how hard it was to go side by side at this track, and Kyle Collette was one of the first drivers to find that out. Other drivers found it out as well throughout the day, and unfortunately it became a race that was won and lost on pit road. Alex Palou, though, got his 5th win of the season at Nashville, holding off the defending race winner Joseph Newgarden, who was not happy by any means necessary, though his teammate David Malukas was quite happy after he had a very eventful weekend. Crashed during practice, went to the hospital. There was some question of whether or not he would even be able to compete. Team Penske called up Connor Daly and said, hey, bud, are you busy? Could you potentially stand in for Malukas? That ended up not happening. Malukas started at the very end of the field and drove all the way up to a 3rd-place finish. So Malukas was happy, but Newgarden wasn't. So it was a tale of 2 Penske drivers for sure there. But, of course, I think Newgarden was more or less upset because it was just too hard to pass. And I think, that's a very honest and valid point. It's not that Nashville is a bad track. It's not that Nashville can't produce good racing. It's just that the rubber was washed off all of the track, and grip was hard to come by. I think had you not had rain on Sunday, you would have had probably one of the best races of the year, and I'll stand by that. And I also think had it actually been a true day-to-night race, I also think that would have made things even better. So maybe they can get it right for next year. Hopefully we could get a true day-to-night race at Nashville next year that also might be a 300 laps. Who knows? Either way, sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. Hey, on the bright side, they had 2.8 million people watch the rainout coverage from the World Cup. So they got that going for them. But anyway, let's go ahead here and talk about the Belgian Grand Prix because we had Kimi Antonelli winning that race, and I just realized how much time I've talked through, so I'm going to go ahead and get through now. Super Formula was in Fuji. They had their triple header, which was, of course, a makeup from a race that was canceled earlier in the season. In race 1 at Fuji, Kakanushin Ota won that one, and then Igor Fraga took the second race, with Ota taking the third race. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the races that are coming up this weekend. And again, stay with me here. There's a lot. So obviously we got the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. The F1 race is scheduled for Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Apple TV. Formula 3, Formula 2 will also be in attendance there as well. Formula 3's sprint race is scheduled for Saturday at 4:05 a.m. Eastern Time, with their feature race set for Sunday at 2:40 a.m. Eastern Time. The F2 sprint race, I should say, is set for Saturday at 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time, with the feature race set for Sunday at 5:25 a.m. Eastern Time. NASCAR is at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and at IRP. We're going to kick things off on Friday with the ARCA race starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. The truck race follows then after at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, also on FS1. On Saturday, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series comes to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the CW. That's at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, of course, on the CW. And then the Brickyard 400 is set for Sunday at 2 p.m. on TNT. Formula E is in Tokyo. We got the Tokyo E-Prix. We got 2 races for you as well. Race 1's coming up Saturday at 7:05 Eastern on the Roku channel, with the second one also Sunday at 7:05 Eastern Time, also free on the Roku channel. Then let's talk about USAC Sprint Week. Lots going on right now. They're at IMS to kick off the Sprint Week. Then they're at Lincoln Park on Friday at 6:15. Kokomo Speedway Saturday at 6. Lawrenceburg Speedway Sunday at 5:45. Circle City Raceway Monday at 6:45. Paragon Speedway Wednesday at 6:15. Terre Haute Action Track, that'll be Thursday at 6:15. Bloomington Speedway Friday at 6:15 as well. And then Tri-State Speedway wrapping things up Saturday, August 1st at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, all of those races are on Flow Racing. Then we got the High Limit Sprint Car Series in action this weekend as well. State Line Speedway at Friday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. That's going to be on Flow Racing, of course. And then Port Royal Saturday and Sunday, both at 6:15 p.m., of course, on Flow Racing as well. So lots to watch this weekend, no shortage of it, and I'm looking forward to all of it. So on that note, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Racing Report. We really appreciate everybody who's tuned in so far today and every week. So we really appreciate all of your support. We can't do it without you. And thank you again so much for tuning in and watching. If you like this show, please feel free to give me a follow on social media. You can do so by clicking down there and following at RPeters33. That's RPEETERS33. Make sure you are subscribed to the WTHR YouTube channel so you get brand new episodes of the Racing Report each and every week coming straight to your subscription box. Or make sure you have the WTHR streaming app installed on your smart TV so that you can watch brand new episodes of the Racing Report on demand whenever you want right here on the streaming app. So, for WTHR, my name is Rob Peeters, and this has been another episode of the Racing Report.